Breakfast this morning is sponsored. There's two yahrzeits. The first is Yitzchak Pinchas ben David, that's Ricky's father, and also Le'ilin Nishmas Sam Agababa Ben Rabbi Nissan. Okay. So the Neshama should have an aliyah in the chus of the study of the Torah. Okay. So on page Shin Mem in the Zera Shimshon, and last week we were very much in the world of Pshat, so we have to balance it out by going this week in the highest of all the worlds. So if some of this is a little bit beyond us, just bear with me here. How's that for an introduction? Okay. So on page Shin Mem, he quotes a difficult midrash, Midrash Yalkut. Yavor na Adoni lifnei avdo. The Yaakov says, please, Esav, you go ahead. You go ahead before me. So there's a very difficult medrash. The medrash says, Amar lo, because Esav said to Yaakov, Mevakesh ata sha'aha shutaf imcha ba'olamcha. Would you like for me to be a partner in your world? Amar lo, to which Yaakov responds, Yavor na Adoni, please let the master go forth. Tul olamcha techila, you take your world first. Now what are they talking about? We don't know yet. Mahu esna ahla li'iti. What does it mean, I'm going to go at my pace? Amar lo, because Yaakov says to Esav, Ad achshav yesh lofanai lasos meleches hamishkan v'hamikdash. I can't join you because I need to build the Mishkan and I need to build the Beis HaMikdash. Yeah, all of this is very... V'zehu l'regel hamalacha asher lefanai. This is because of the work that's before me. Umahu l'regel hayiladim. What does it mean, the legs or the feet of the children before me? Amar lo, he's saying to him, Ad achshav yesh li lahamid, I need to establish Hananya, Mishael, va'Azariah. I need to give birth to these great people, Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah, who would throw themselves into the fiery furnace rather than to bow down. Shenamar behem, of whom it says, Yeladim asher ein behem kalmum, children who have no blemish. Hamidrash hazeh omer darsheni. This midrash is begging for an explanation. V'rabu bo kalat mios haniglas le'ein kol roa. And there's so many obvious questions on this midrash. Anyone who reads this midrash has no idea what it's talking about. Ma'inyan melachas hamishkan u'mikdash. How does the building of the Mishkan or the Beis HaMikdash, what does that have to do with Yaakov and Esav? And Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah. What do Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah, three random Jews in the future, how are they the response from Yaakov to Esav? And furthermore, the beginning of the Midrash, what's Esav asking? Can I be a partner in your world? Esav wants a portion in the world to come. The world to come is hidden away for the righteous. He is wicked. And he's still interested in staying wicked. He doesn't want to change. Yaakov says, take your world first. Take this world as your portion. What does it mean by first? So, in order to answer all these questions, he's going to tell us some very big secrets about the truth of who Esav is. And this is going to go back to some subjects that we've discussed over the weeks. So he goes straight to the Arizal. The Arizal wrote a whole book called Shar HaGilgulim, and there he not only does he describe the process of the souls migrating through the worlds, but even tells us some specific information about specific individuals and their souls. And the Arizal tells us there The Masha Ahav Yitzchak es Esav. The reason why Yitzchak loves Esav so much, Hu ki gam ezeh le'uma zeh hasa ha'elokim. Because Hashem always allows for a balance between the world of good and the world of evil, between the world of holiness and the world of impurity. It is always perfectly balanced. Yitzchak hu midas hagevura. We know that Yitzchak is the attribute of judgment, the attribute of severity, the attribute of strict justice. That's the world that Yitzchak lived in. That's the world that he brought down into this world. Ve'esav hu Edom. Esav is the founder of Edom. Edom literally means red, but red is the color of severity and judgment and harshness. Hu beheichal elyon shel haklipa. But Esav isn't just in the realm of severity. He is in the highest chamber. He is on top. He is the chief of the sanctuary of severity on the side of the husks, the side of the klipa, on the side of the shells of the evil. And what the Zera Shimshon is about to tell us is very important. Many people confuse these Kabbalistic concepts and try to connect them to the concepts which exist in the world at large in certain pagan cultures of this balancing between good and evil. Yin and yang, and in Zoroastrian they certainly have the forces for good and evil and light and dark. Kabbalah has nothing to do with that. Why? Because here is the big difference and the most important difference of all. All those religions believe that there's a power for good and there's a power for evil, and they fight each other, and we are stuck in the middle. We believe that there is only one force in the world, and that's Hashem. And He created both dark and light. The dark is as much a servant of Hashem and their job to try to promote evil within the world as the light. And therefore, the reason why they exist is they're both within us in order to provide us with the appropriate challenge, to give us the opportunity to overcome and to bring good into the world. And that is all the difference in the world. There is no force for evil that's fighting against Hashem. It's a force for evil fighting against good, and Hashem wants the good, so technically they're the enemies of Hashem, but they're the servants playing the role of the enemies of Hashem. Because of that, the entire structure of evil is maintained by the light of Hashem, who infuses them with life. And therefore, Esav, who is in charge of the attribute of judgment on the other side, he's the force for destruction and evil in the world. He has within him the holy sparks, the light from Hashem. So it says, Sheyesh sham k'tzas ha'ara. Esav, he has that illumination of holiness. Hayol shehu samuch al sof ha'kedusha, because he's close to the edge of holiness. And as you get further away, further down into the depth of the husks and the shells and the aspects of evil, you move further away from that light. But Esav, he has that light that we have to try to remove from him and bring back into holiness in order to take the whole attribute of evil and turn it towards the good. V'Yitzchak ratza l'sakin es Esav. And so that's why Yitzchak loves Esav, because he knows that the greatest accomplishment that he could do is to bring Esav, who is leading, he's the head. He has that light which Hashem gave to the evil in order to promote evil into the world. If he can bring back Esav, he can bring back all of the evil back into the side of good, and that will be the ultimate fixing of the world.
Then why didn't he let her marry Dinah?
We'll get to that. Well, right now he's at Yitzchak, not Yaakov. But we'll see, Yaakov doesn't do the right job with these things. Shuhu bechinas rosh shalachitzonim. Esav is the head of all the externals. Externals means the side that's there to promote evil. This is why our sages tell us, Sherosho nikbar im Yaakov, that Esav's head is buried with Yaakov. Why would Esav's head be buried with Yaakov? You're familiar with the Gemara. The Gemara says that when they wanted to bury Yaakov, Esav came to fight. He said, it's mine. They ran to get the deed, and they couldn't get it on time. And Chushim, the grandson of Yaakov, he hears about this, and he takes a big club and hits Esav over the head, and Esav's, or an axe, different midrashim. But basically, Esav's head rolls onto where Yaakov was laying. And it turns out Esav's head is buried in the Ma'aris HaMachpelah along with Yaakov. Why would that be? Says the Zera Shimshon, the secret is because the head of Esav had the Kedusha, had the holiness that we were supposed to bring back to the side of holiness. B'zeh ohav oso Yitzchak, and that's why Yitzchak loves him so much. Because he used his mouth, which is in his head, to capture and to take the holiness, and Yitzchak loved the holy sparks that he saw within Esav. So, once the Zera Shimshon takes this concept, now he's going to go to all kinds of places with this. You may be familiar with a verse, which he's going to explain now, describing the story by the Garden of Eden. There, Hashem says to the serpent that there will always be war between you and the woman, between the Isha and the Nachash. What will be the war? He will try to tread on your head, and you will bite his heel. Now that's a very interesting thing. Why is it that snakes bite the heel? And why is it that we are trying specifically to tread on the head? It is clear that the words of Hashem to the serpent are not just in the physical realm. The best way to kill a snake is to smash its head in. And it's not just telling you that because the snake has no legs anymore, the only place he can bite is the heel. V'zeu pirush hapasuk, what the verse really means. Hu yeshuv charosh, he will tread upon you, smash you with his head. Shakedusha mechateses rosha klipa, because the holiness realizes that the holiness of which was stolen is in the head of Esav. We're trying to tread on Esav's head, meaning to draw back the holiness that's within Esav, specifically within his head, to retake the holiness that was absorbed and is illuminated in the head of the snake, represented by the head of Esav at that particular juncture.
The snake comes way before.
Right.
So is this then a prediction of what's going to be occurring?
Well, this is going to happen in every generation. You're going to have the holiness which is stolen by the other side is always going to be in the head. So Esav, who is a classic representation of the evil of the serpent, his head and his mouth, but specifically through the mouth, but his head is a container, a vessel of holiness, which it's our job, or Yaakov's job, and Yitzchak's job, certainly at the beginning, to try to fix that person through that holiness.
Also, evil seems to be much more organized than good. Good seems to be diffuse. Evil is not diffuse. Evil is much more directed.
To a certain extent, evil is more obvious. Yeah, but there's certain advantages to each side.
Now, maybe going back to something you were saying before, that it's both are totally under the control of Hashem. That's true. I can argue with that, but it seems that evil has its own intrinsic force. Good's force is not quite as direct. Again, the word I use is directed as good.
Well, I think certainly it seems that way. It seems that way within us. I think most people would tell you that it's a lot easier to fail and to not do things than it is. It seems like the evil inclination does a much better job of convincing me not to wake up in the morning than the good inclination does at convincing me why I should wake up. I think that's a symptom of what you're saying. He says, "Va'klipa," but the other side, the husks, mechateses ha'ekev shel ha'kedusha, they can't access the head of holiness. Who are they trying to capture? Evil always goes for the weakest link. They try to catch the heel. Right? They try to catch the weak animals. To capture the light within it. And therefore we have this, because there is the holiness, and its feet is the bottom of the holiness, and this is very deep stuff. So the evil is always trying to capture the heel of the holiness in its head in order to have this kedusha. The Zehu Pirish, this is the real meaning of the Yado Ochezes Ba'akev Esav. The hand of Yaakov is holding on to the heel of Esav, not the heel of Esav, but the heel of Yaakov that Esav is trying to break and take and rob and steal from. Esav is trying to get as much holiness as he can from all the Jews who are weak in their faith, from all the Jews who are struggling. That's who Esav tries to capture and convince to join with him. And Yaakov is holding on to the heel. He's holding on to as many Jews as he can to try to keep Esav from taking them. Okay, now the rest of the paragraph we're not going to explain. It'll take us a half hour to explain it. I'm just going to read through it quickly, pretend like I'm not saying it.
But Pasuk just says that he's holding on to the ankle, to the acre from Esav, not his own. He's trying to say that he's holding on. He's trying to get his own.
You have to read it. The Shivim Panim LaTorah. It's the fact that this one pshat doesn't take away from another pshat, right? Okay, so I'm just going to read these words quickly, please. The Akev refers to two aspects of the name Elokim, whatever this means. Be'ez pa'amim Elokim, 2 times Elokim. Elokim is 86. 2 times Elokim, Olam Akev is 172. 86 plus 86 is 172. Ve'elu ha'beis Elokim kol echad b'milu yemilu d'milu ola beis non osios. Again, just ignore me here. The 2 times Elokim, if you spell it out, extend it, and then extend it again. I'll just put this in because this is a side note. You should know that the letters of the Aleph Beis are not just random sounds that we make in order to refer to something, but the letters of the Aleph Beis are the spiritual force within everything. So this is a shin, a lamed, a ches, and a nun, which make it a shulchan, and it's those letters that give this object existence. In the same way, your name is the true essence of who you are, and the letters which form your name are the light by which you live. But you should know that if someone's name is, let's say, Moshe, Mem Shin Hey, that's a Mem, a Shin, a Hey who make up their name, but the Mem itself is made up of a Mem and a Mem, and the Shin is made of a Shin, a Yud, and a Nun, and the Hey is made up of a Hey and a Hey, and therefore the name actually has a greater value than it can imagine. But not only that, but even the Shin, the Nun within the Shin of the Shin, or the Yud within the Shin of the... Each one can itself be extended. And so that's why your neshama is endless, it's infinite, because it has a numerical value of infinity. It just keeps going and going. So he's saying if you take the name Elokim twice and you expand it, you end up with 52 letters. Ubeis pa'amim nun, Beis pa'amim ben, 2 times 52, Olet Sayid is the word Sayid, 104, because the Sayid Befiv, and that's the key even if we're avoiding all the details, Esav is absorbing the Kedusha of his existence, of the parents that he's from, of the world around him, to try to steal as much Kedusha as he can. V'zeu ki tzayid bepiv, he was trapping with his mouth. Ratzolom ki zos habechina hu belua bepiv el beis pamim elokim ve'eli yesh lem shtei avayis she'olim beis nun. 52 is 2 times Yud Kei Vav Kei. V'nechlal zu b'zu b'terech zu v'osam avaya echad they become one. V'ukishnet tzayid al heim b'tzu. I'm not even going to read it. Okay, next paragraph. Ulezeh Ahav Yitzchak as Esav. This is why Yitzchak loves Esav so much. Because Yitzchak sees, he's drawn to that holiness that Esav has trapped. Amar lo. He says to him, and hear these words: Tzei asada, go out to the field, v'tzuda li tzayid, and go trap for me a trapping. Why does he tell Esav, who is the greatest hunter in the world, go out to the field? Does Esav not know where to trap? The answer is, the Hainu, he was telling him, this is your chance. You are now in a very bad place. This is your chance to go out of the dangerous and bad and evil place that you are and go into a place of holiness. Not the sadeh, the field that's out there with all the animals in it. But there's a place. There's a very holy field. And if you say these prayers on Friday night by the Suda, you invite a certain guest to come. Who do you invite? You say, this is the meal of Chakal Tapuchin Kaddish in the field of holy apples, which is the Garden of Eden. He says to him, why spend your whole life in Gehenna? Come into the field of holy apples. Come into the field of holiness. Into the field of the holy apples. How? I'll tell you how. I'll give you exact instructions. So I want you to do the shechita properly. There's 5 things which can cause you to ruin a shechita. If you hold a knife this way, if you cut, if you skip, if you delay, whatever the process is, you should know that when you intend to avoid those 5 things, Yatsud hachamisha gavuros, you will through this, you will contain, control, capture the 5 aspects of judgment that exist in the world. Ubezeh yumtak, and you will be sweetened and fixed. But Yisukan ashtei shemes shal ben shahayalo, and both these names of 52 will be fixed. V'zet sayid, capture. Yitzchak, the point was, without getting into all the Kabbalistic intentions here, Yitzchak was telling him, you should know that every single mitzvah has in it the ability to fix you, especially the mitzvah of shechita. Because shechita is probably amongst all the mitzvahs of the greatest acts of gevura, of severity, of justice. You have to slaughter. There's only a few mitzvahs that are more gevura. Most of those involve execution on the parts of the court. But here, this is about as gevura, as strict, as severe as it gets. And you, Esav, you are gevura. If you do the shechita, the slaughtering of the animal, and do it properly with the halacha, and when you do it according to the halacha, it allows you access to the spiritual fixing. And you will find yourself at the end of that process that you are no longer in an evil place, but you will find yourself in the field of holy apples, which is exactly what Yitzchak smells when Yaakov comes in. He says, you smell like the garden, and Rashi says, like he smelled like the field of apples.
Imam Loitz has a midrash that he wasn't able to find anything to eat, and he didn't want to delay his dad, so he slaughtered his dog, his hunting dog.
Right.
And so he failed the test completely,
Right.
because he brought this, not even a kosher animal. And so it didn't matter. He did
Right. But even without going to the medrash of the dog, but certainly what we're saying is that Esav was refusing to follow these instructions of his father and try to do the shechita properly with the right intentions. He was just going for the brachas. And Yitzchak had given him direct instructions for how he can walk out of the bad place that he was. And in the end, in the end, the holiness was only in his head. That's why his head was buried in the cave with Yaakov. V'od amru sham. So you should know Shebeleya haisa baktsas zuhama. There was a little bit of this impurity, of this, what's a better word than impurity, but
Defect?
yeah. Technically it means like a poison or kilon isbara legamri. She herself had not been brought into this world completely fixed. This is why she was fitting to marry Esav. But she chose to fix herself. She cried and she cried, nesakna, till she fixed herself. But she only fixed herself. Her daughter was still the right person to marry Esav. V'nishara Dina b'mekoma li'naseh le'Esav. So Dina remained to marry Esav. Elashi Yaakov tamna b'teva. Yaakov hides her in the box. Malzen nenash Yaakov aleh k'moshe Amar Zal. And this is why Yaakov gets punished. Ki yoseh ru'uya Elav, because she was the person who could have brought back this holiness from Esav. Yitzchak tried. Yitzchak failed. Yeah, Leah could have, but she prayed not to. But Dinah could have done it. Through Dinah, Esav would have been fixed. Because he had all these holy sparks. Now, I don't know if we're going to have time to read the whole Midrash, because I want to get to one other teaching from the Zera Shimshon, but let's see how far we can get. Esav knows. Esav is a very big person. He knows that he has this holiness. And he knows that Yaakov wants to take it from him. Kedichsiv, he knows this because when they're born, he's already holding on to him. And he wonders. He says, what's wrong with you, Yaakov? Why are you hiding Dinah in the box? He says, why are you hiding Dinah in the box? She's supposed to fix me. Let's skip to the next paragraph. Why are you trying to take all the Kedusha from me? If you take all my holiness, we know, as we said, that the evil is only being held up and supported because of the holiness that's within it. If you remove the holiness, what happens? It dies.
Then there's no free choice.
There's no people. He's dead. Esav says, if you remove the holiness from me without bringing me back, I'm dead. If you do that, then I'll die. But I have not yet received all my reward for all the good things I've done in this world. And what happens to someone who dies and has not received all their reward in this world? They get the next world. So Esav says to him, would you like to share the next world? That's what the Medrash means. Esav is saying to him, either you give me what's mine in this world, or you're going to have to share the next world with me. So as he moves on, he says, and Yaakov realizes that he has no right to take all the Kedusha from Esav and then to give him nothing. And so that's why he says, you go ahead, you do things, and I'll come to you later. Later meaning once all this holiness is absorbed.
What was he saying? You get your reward now here. I'll let it go.
Right. And that's why Yaakov says, no, you know what, you go ahead. Now,
had Dinah been allowed to marry Esav, and then the tikkun, everything was there, would have that lifted the curse with the serpent and the heel, everything that was said?
To a certain extent, it would have fixed a great amount. Now, we're going to skip ahead to page Shin Mem Ches. If you see in the paragraph on the left, Vahatam. So he tells us, I think most people would say that the story of Dinah is one of the most tragic events in Sefer Bereshis. It was tragic only in this world. Vahatam sheba'osa ma'aseh shel Dinah lo haya ba shum pegam lefi ha'emes. But you should know, in the truth, without negating any of the pain that she might have gone through. But in a spiritual realm, this was not something that caused her blemish. Yuva Mamashikasav Sefer Amudah Shiva B'Shem Arizal. Shechem ben Chamor Hachivi. Shechem, the son of Chamor, was a Chivi. Chivi was one of the names of the nations that lived there. But as you know, Chivi is also the Aramaic word for serpent. So, we've discussed this over and over, that our avos are constantly trying to fix the original sin of Adam Arishon. Adam Arishon broke the world, if we could say it like that, and the world continued to break and remained broken, even though there were some people who tried a little bit, but until Avraham, the fixing doesn't begin. The Medrash tells us Hashem kept moving away level after level after level. Avraham begins the process, and in theory, it was fixed by the giving of the Torah. Of course, 40 days later, we sinned with the golden calf, but at least at some point, Vayered Hashem al Har Sinai, the world was returned, or would have been returned, to this level. So the fight between the Avos and all the incidents, every single episode that our Avos are dealing with, is to try to undo the sin of Adam Rishon. And so the serpent, the Nachash, keeps coming back. We just saw him as Esav. But now, Shechem ben Chamor Hachivi, which is almost like saying Shechem, the son of Chamor, the snake, Hu HaNachash HaKadmoni, he is the original serpent, Shehesis as Chava, who seduces Chava, V'hitel Ba'zuama, L'kein Nikra Chivi Lashon Chivya. Chivi means in Aramaic a serpent, and that's actually why he calls her Chava instead of Chaya. He should have called her Chaya because she was the mother of all living beings, but because to a certain extent, not only is she the mother of all living beings, she also carries on the poison of that serpent, so that Yud becomes a Vav to represent the snake. Anyway, so we've discussed this many times, that one of the things that they're trying to do is recapture all the neshamos, all the holy souls. And by Adam Rishon, by the sin, all these sparks, all these holy souls are dispersed throughout the world. And most of these neshamas, I should say really all of them, come back by Matan Torah, by the 600,000 Jews who have collected the 600,000 souls that were contained within Adam. But then, by the subsequent sins, the world once again was redispersed.
So what happened with Dinah, because she was already had that little defect.
Well, let's see. We don't try to guess what he's going to say, but right. We'll see. Ubetoch haklipa shel terach hayanitzas hakadosh shel Avraham. Terach is a shell. He's a husk, which sometimes when you remove the husk, you bring out a beautiful fruit, and that fruit in that case was Avraham. But you should know how anyone knows this. We don't know. Only the Arizal can tell us this. But Terach ba'al ishto b'mei nidasa. That Terach and his wife, she became impregnated while she was technically still nida. And because of this, their souls have to come back to correct this blemish which they brought into the world. Terach comes back. Arizal. Be'iyov. And through that suffering, he fixes that sin of the prohibited relations with Anida. V'ishto, and the wife of Terach, is Galgala Bedina. Nida shenafcha ledina. Dina and Nida are the same letters. All from the Arizal. Ukesheba Shechem al Dina. When Shechem and Dina have this relationship, Sha'av mimenu kalazuama shel anida. He absorbs and takes, because he's the evil. He takes from her all that impurity, and she takes from him all of his purity. There's an exchange here.
When that child can marry Yosef because she's
absolutely pure, that child.
Wow.
Vashomeya sover shenit madina. So when you hear the story, you think that Dina was contaminated.
Just the reverse.
Va'adarab, on the contrary, lefia emes ayidei zeh nitara she was actually purified through this process. Shishav mimenu kalazua mashal nachash, all the impurity of the serpent was taken from her. Kedichsiva tihi nidasa alav, and her impurity became on him. So, what we don't understand any of these things, but we're reading the words, and what we're reading here is that underneath the whole story of what's happening here is a whole level of the battle over the kedusha and tumah in the world that we can read the parsha 1,000 times and never see. That the fight between Esav and Yaakov, we talked about this before, is for the holiness that Esav has. Esav is trying to take all these Kedusha, all the souls, the 600,000 souls, all the Kedusha, which is meant to be brought back. And so over the years, we're still trying to collect. The Gemara tells us that the reason why the Jews are in exile is because we're supposed to bring back all the souls that need to come back. But he's saying here, even within this event of Shechem and Dinah, this was Shechem and Dinah came back. They were Chava and the serpent. They were Terach and his wife. And they were here to correct all those areas where things had been messed up. Inyan Hasair Hanose Avonos Yisrael. And this is the goat that bears the sins of the Jewish people. And we take it and we shove it off the mountain. Because the impurities of the Jewish people is given all to the serpent, to the Azazel, to Esav, and then thrown off the mountain. Vihi nasis nakia, and Dinah becomes completely pure. Now, what happens to Dinah after this? So you're maybe all familiar with the Medrash, that Shimon marries Dinah. So he says, Shimon shenizgala lo sod zeh. The reason why Shimon marries her and not anyone else is because Shimon realizes he's somehow given this secret, the fikach lakach osel isha, that's why Shimon marries her. Again, this is all from the Arizal.
But having that child marry Yosef allows him to collect all those sparks with all the money that he collected from everything else because he has her as a partner. That's pretty cool.
And if we had more time, we would say how this is connected to the story of Zimri and Cosby too. But just to add one line, he says that Yaakov makes mistakes. Throughout the parsha, the Midrashim call him out on mistakes. But all of the mistakes that Yaakov makes, take a look at every single one, are mistakes not of what he did, but what it looks like to other people. He goes through some examples earlier. So he says, because all of Yaakov's mistakes are all as it seems to other people. So basically what he's saying is, I know I'm doing the right thing, but he didn't consider the fact that other people don't realize that. So his punishment was that it should seem on the outside like he was punished by Dinah becoming impurified. Which is measure for measure, even though in fact what really happened to her was she was purified. And again, we're not talking about what happened on the outside and the pain that she felt and all of that, but on a spiritual level, she was not. They're saying she was contaminated. She wasn't. This was the fixing of Dinah, which then allowed her to become, like you said, to bear this holy child. But I don't know if we can fully understand everything that we just said. But what we do want to take from this, and I think this really is important, is that we have to realize that as much as Yaakov, his job was to fight this battle, and he knew all these things, and we see that Yitzchak is giving specific instructions for how you can fix yourself and all that, there actually is a practical application for each one of us. We have to understand that this world is still broken. It's still broken because each of us is required to do our part in the fixing of the world. And if we are not on the level where we need to go out and shecht with the 5 rules of shechita and bring ourselves back into the garden, we have mitzvahs every day. And there are many people who say, I don't understand why the halacha should be like this, the halacha should be like that. If there's anything that we learn here, is that we have no clue of what's really going on in the background of everything. Every single thing that we do, every little nuance, it counts for something. So if the bracha is supposed to be made like this, the bracha is supposed to be made like that. The rabbi gave a drasha yesterday on whether you do make a bracha before Hallel, you don't make a bracha, when you do, which you do. The world hangs in the balance for these questions, should you or shouldn't you? And if we realize that, then every time we do something, we know that the fixing of the world is in our hands. May we merit that we should tread on the head of the snake, bring back all the Kedusha, and we zoche to the fixing of the world. Meher Rabbi Amen.
Amen.
Amen.